Metro Talk. I'm Kent Shuffle. Thanks for being with us. Pat Gowan with the Post-Dispatch is here as well. Welcome, Pat.
Hi, Kent.
And Jim Schrader from the Telegraph is alongside. Welcome, Jim.
Hi, guys.
Jim, some Illinois businesses were upset this past weekend. Missouri had its sales tax holiday running so that people could buy school supplies, clothing, those sorts of items without paying sales tax. Illinois businesses were saying they're losing money as a result of that. Should Illinois reinstate a sales tax holiday for this time of year?
Well, it sounds like a good idea. I guess if you're on the retail side of things and you think that you're leaking business across the river, the shoppers certainly seem to enjoy it, or at least there was certainly a lot of hype coming from the Missouri businesses. But it does cost money. I mean, there is a substantial impact, according to Governor Quinn and the budget office. There is a substantial hit in losing that sales tax revenue. My girlfriend and I were out Sunday, as a matter of fact, shopping, and what was interesting to us is a couple of the stores that we were in Illinois were giving out coupons for discounts that day in excess of what you would have paid in sales tax. Basically, that was their response to the sales tax holiday in Missouri, trying to keep some of that in Illinois. And actually, the discount was more than it would have been on the sales tax, so I guess it kind of cancels each other out. We have a problem in the state of Illinois that, as we all know, we are now either, depending on how you count, number one in the nation or number 50 in the nation on the deficit. $37.8 billion, according to the Comptroller and Treasurer's Office. If you take a hit of $4 or $5 million in potential sales tax statewide over that weekend, that is a major hit. Missouri's tax was somewhat restrictive. Or the holiday was somewhat restricted. I think it was clothing only up to about $100, which for most kids, $100 is not going to buy a whole lot. School supplies up to a value of about $50, which again, I guess that would add up over a period of time. The big hit, however, was in Missouri, it would cover computer equipment up to $3,500. Well, if you're talking sales tax in the neighborhood of 6.25% for state tax and various and sundry other taxes up to about 10% on the price of a computer, now you're going to have people's attention. I don't know how many people loaded in the car and went to an electronics store in Missouri over the weekend. My girlfriend and I were not out buying a lot of things, but we did enjoy an additional discount on a couple of items that we did buy. That was actually more than we would have saved with a sales tax holiday.
Pat, is it time for Illinois to reinstate a sales tax holiday? Some Illinois businesses are not happy about the fact that Missouri has one and Illinois doesn't.
Well, Missouri's was confusing because some municipalities opted out. So, for example, Richmond Heights did not participate. Richmond Heights includes the Galleria. So theoretically, the Galleria did not participate, although Macy's announced it was going to participate at all stores, even the Macy's at Galleria. So I guess they were paying the tax themselves and taking the hit so they could match the prices. So when you went to Missouri, I'm not sure how you could be absolutely certain because of the opt-in and opt-outs all over the place, whether you were getting it or not until you bought it. Maybe you'd have to ask up front, I suppose. If you live in Illinois and drove over there, you got to spend about $45 or more to save the tax on a gallon of gas. So if it took you 2 gallons of gas to get to wherever you were shopping in Missouri and back, if that was 2 gallons, then that would be about a wash in gasoline on the tax that you spent, that you didn't spend on buying $100 worth of stuff. So there is that diminishing return. I mean, I think in those terms with gasoline prices, which are cheaper in Missouri, and I often buy gasoline in Missouri because I'm already there. But if I weren't already there, it often would not be worth my while to drive from home to Missouri to buy gas. I would spend more on the gas I spent, it took going there. Now, The real cynics will tell you that Illinois did this for the first time last year because it was an election year, and we didn't do it in 2011 because it's not an election year, and they're saying, stay tuned for 2012, it'll be an election year again.
We've never had cynics on here before.
No, so maybe this will just be an every other year thing in Illinois. Illinois didn't do it. Illinois is in a lot worse fiscal shape than the state of Missouri, which did do it, so that might account for part of why Missouri thought it was a reasonable thing to do and Illinois not. But I think there's a lot of hype about it, but if you live in Illinois, I think the savings, depending on how far you've got to go to get them, may be more of an illusion than a reality.
Jim, Illinois' 2 senators voted in favor of raising the nation's debt limit ceiling. Did they make the right vote?
Yes, if that's the question as far as it goes, just raising the debt ceiling. It had to be done. There were threats by the ratings companies to cut the ratings on U.S. debt. If they didn't raise the ceiling, well, they raised the ceiling and we got our rating cut anyway, but oh well, it might have been worse than dropping from a AAA to a AA plus. It had to be done. We were concerned about going into default. I personally wish more had been built into this legislation controlling or dealing with spending and increases in spending and more potential for cuts to keep that debt in line. What I'm concerned about is while it was very contentious and went down to the 11:30 hour to get this done, it came down to the day of. It was contentious, it was bipartisan, but it was fairly easy to do. To me, we don't accomplish anything if my budget balance is out of balance at home and I just apply for another credit card, which increases my credit limit. I don't solve my problem. I don't get myself ultimately out of debt. I don't even have to commit to control my expenses. I just get another MasterCard and look at this, all of a sudden I've got another credit limit of $10,000 or $12,000 that I can run up and not have to worry about the cards over here except the minimum amount, which in our particular case for the U.S. is the interest on what we owe to other countries. So I don't think enough was accomplished. I think the vote was right to increase the debt ceiling. It had to happen. I wish there was more legislation that had gone with it to get us out of this mess. I saw a scary Associated Press graphic. The most indebted country that the United States owes is we owe China $1.15 trillion to the country of China. The next largest creditor is Japan. We owe them $907 billion. So in just those two countries, we owe over $2 trillion in debt. Just the debt service, just the interest on that is eating the U.S. alive. And oh, by the way, the various and other smaller creditors that we have, think of those two as our house payment and car payment, I guess. House payment to China and our car payment to Japan. We owe several smaller companies, which are the BP credit card and JCPenney and MasterCard and Visa. We owe another $2.5 trillion to them. Yes, we had to increase the debt ceiling, but I wish we were doing something more to pay off those creditors. That seems to me, when $4.5 trillion is your total debt, which is well more than your gross national product, you can't keep that up for very long. And you can't just go back and say, well, we put a Band-Aid on the femoral artery here. This will slow the bleeding until we have to turn around and do this again next year.
Pat, the 2 senators from Illinois both voted to raise the debt ceiling. Was that the correct vote for them?
Sure, they had no choice. No, I don't think anybody in his right mind believed that the debt ceiling would not be increased. What we had as a run-up to it was essentially a poker game with the time limits, so that I'd Andy and you'd call, and you'd Andy and I'd call, and we kept going back and forth. But in the end, we both knew that by a particular deadline, both of us would have to fold. And that was the deadline. It's pretty hard to win when you know all you got to do is hold out long enough for both sides to fold. That's what happened. There were conditions put into that. This super commission is going to look at cutting, and defense money is on the table by a deadline later this year, as is Medicare money, so that the Democrats have a dog in the hunt, and so do the Republicans. But it should never have gotten to this point. Our leaders should never have gotten us right to the brink, whether that cost us a plus instead of an A on the formerly AAA Standard & Poor's credit rating. I don't know. There are people who want to blame the right wing for holding it hostage and hurting our credit in that way. I don't know if that's really what happened. What I do know is they've got to get together and do something realistic and stop playing with our money as though all they care about is who gets elected president next time, because that's what it feels like.
You mentioned this commission. It's going to be 6 Republicans, 6 Democrats. Will they be able to solve anything when it's a split like that?
We need some cynics on here.
We got 3 each from the House and Senate. I don't know how that's going to happen, and when the deadline comes, what's it, December?
It's right before Thanksgiving is the first deadline.
I have no idea what we're going to be facing then, or what that may do to this. If the way they've structured it, if they don't get it fixed, then you're going to have some significant cuts at the Pentagon. You have some significant cuts in social services that either the Republicans or Democrats don't want. So theoretically, that'll light a fire under them. But if we've not been able to get together when they aren't even evenly divided right now, I have no idea how this is going to work.
We need to take a break. We'll have more Metro Talk in a moment.
Hi, I'm Audrey LaCasey, and I'm from Alton, Illinois. I love music, and that's why I came to Lewis & Clark. It's been an amazing experience here at Lewis & Clark, working with students that are so talented, coming from all over the area, and they work so hard to follow their dreams. The music faculty at Lewis & Clark they're fantastic, and they're there every step of the way to push you to follow your dreams. One of the unique opportunities that I have had at Lewis & Clark is being able to record my own music with a fellow student here. Being able to record our music has opened doors for us in the music industry. My long-term goal is to finish here at Lewis & Clark and then to transfer to a 4-year school and finish my degree in music performance. I would recommend Lewis & Clark to another student because it is definitely a great place to get started, and it can open so many doors for you.
Big dreams and good grades aren't enough to get into college. There are actual steps you need to take. Finding someone who can help is the first and most important. For the next steps, go to knowhowtogo.org.
This is Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Jim Schrader and Pat Gowan are here. Pat, the Illinois DREAM Act has been enacted. The DREAM Act provides scholarship opportunities for immigrants and their children and establishes the mechanism for illegal immigrants to receive college scholarships. Were lawmakers correct in approving this legislation?
I don't understand it well enough to have a very intelligent opinion, except to the extent that it had bipartisan support. Republicans and Democrats were both behind it. Cost the state nothing at all, they say, although if that's true, I don't know why the state's in it to begin with. Supposedly will benefit maybe 95,000 students, immigrant students, some of whom may not be documented and some of whom may be, and provide them an opportunity to get higher education, better jobs, be more productive citizens, do more for the economy. All very laudable things. At the same time, a professor at I believe University of Chicago is saying that, until there is federal reform that makes it easier for them to become legal citizens, that the college degrees, according to studies that have been done, don't do as much for them as you might think. That if you don't have the right kind of paper, having the college paper is nice, but if you don't have the immigration paper to go with it, you may still be shoved into more menial jobs. You just have a better education while you're doing it, and some of this needs to be addressed. I ought to say that the proponents will point out that in many cases the kids who are targeted for benefit may not know that they're undocumented. Their parents emigrated here illegally, and they were born here, and or I guess they're born here, they're Americans, but emigrated with them illegally, and so they didn't realize that they didn't have citizenship until they're reaching college age and having a hard time signing up or proving their identity or things like that. So one more quick thought. I think it has more bearing in the Chicago area, where you have a lot larger population and a lot more immigrant population than we have, which isn't to say we don't have any, but I don't think if it were only based on the Metro East area, demand would have given rise to a bill like this.
Jim, the DREAM Act has become law in Illinois. That's going to make it easier for immigrants, the children of illegal immigrants, to attend college in Illinois. Was it a good move by the lawmakers?
Well, as Pat kind of alluded to, ostensibly it's zero revenue impact for the state. This will be supported by private grants, private donations, and that money will then be funneled through. And will be a self-supportive program. I, like Pat, question then what does the state have to do with this, and why does the act have to be signed into law if it's going to be funneled through basically a nonprofit organization? And then I think about the wonderful performance that the Illinois College Fund has had in the last few years, where it lost several $1 million worth of its value, and a lot of parents who've been paying into that fund who thought little Johnny was ready to go and tuition was all set, found out that their fund wasn't exactly as valuable as they thought it was. So I suspect that it will not be revenue neutral to the state government. If nothing else, there will be a bureaucracy put in place to help funnel the money through. That's just my guess on that. I like Pat, think that this has a much bigger impact probably in the more populated areas. Again, I would have liked to have seen this go a step further and say to those students, okay, you are undocumented, illegal being the old-fashioned term we don't use anymore. You're an undocumented alien, and we're going to help you with this Illinois DREAM Act to go to college and become a better citizen, with a caveat that part of your education will be towards becoming a U.S. citizen. Now, some would say that that wouldn't be legal because you're saying you're only going to help this student if they become a flag-waving U.S. citizen, and maybe that's right. Maybe I'm not being politically correct here. But part of the reason that we have a problem in the U.S. with illegal aliens is there doesn't seem to be a real strong need to say you need to either go through the program and become a documented alien or a citizen, or you need to go back from whence you came. Even the Border Patrol will say, you put somebody on a truck and send them back across the border at Laredo, you're going to catch them a few days later trying to make it back across. So I would have liked to have seen something a little more substantial in there. I would say if I were an undocumented alien, I wouldn't be standing there looking for my check just yet, because I suspect it's going to take a while for this to build up. Big deal in Chicago. I suspect a big deal in Chicago with some hopes of growing some good blue-collar Democrats down the road as well that would vote for Quinn and his cronies.
I want to say from a political point of view, there is great tolerance for undocumented aliens in the United States because they do jobs in many cases nobody else wants. They fill voids where America's labor force simply is not interested in picking crops or doing some of the traditional things. As you educate this workforce, this undocumented workforce, to compete for jobs at a higher level, I think you're going to be running into some political interference from people who say, well, my kid didn't want to pick tomatoes, so it's okay for undocumented to come and do that, but my kid wants to be an accountant and I don't want more competition than necessary from foreigners. So I think this has a backdrop that could become interestingly controversial politically, especially if we're adopted on a wider basis by more states.
We need to take a break. More in a moment.
Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check out the radio broadcasting program in WLCA with Mike Lemons.
Have you ever listened to your favorite radio station or your favorite disc jockey and say, I could do that? Or maybe you're the type of person who says, I could never do something like that. Well, with the help of first-year Mass Comm student John, we're going to show you just how easy it is. Each voice intro starts with talking about the band that just played, and we add a station identifier. Next, you want to offer some information that may be of interest to your audience. And finally, tell the listeners what the next song is, who sings it, followed by another station identifier. John will do one live now.
Silver Sun Pickup Substitution on WLCA. The Big Pink released their debut album called A Brief History of Love. The single is off that album. It's The Big Pink with Dominoes. It's on College Radio's Best 89.9.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
What's that? I don't know. Something I kind of made. Ooh, what's it do?
What do I do? Well, thanks for asking. I ring my bell and I like to dance. What do I do? Well, thanks for asking.
Ow! Yeah, it still needs a little work.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org.
Sounds like you could use some Van Gogurt. It's fortified with arch-rich nutrients to improve your math and reading skills. Catch!
Van Gogurt. Thanks. So what's the deal with your ear?
Always with the ear, huh?
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit AmericansForTheArts.org.
This is Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel, Jim Schrader, and Pat Gowan are here. Don't forget, you can get Metro Talk anytime at lc.edu, available 24/7. Jim, Lieutenant Governor Sheila Simon says the state's working-age adults need a college degree. We were talking about education before the break. Simon wants legislation approved that would provide an incentive program for the institutions in Illinois, the colleges and universities, to keep students until they graduate. Does it make sense to set up this kind of an incentive program?
Okay, let's see. Mr. Lewis and Clark, we'll just use you because we're in an institution of higher learning as we tape this. We're going to give you a financial incentive to make sure that all of the students that enroll here stay through and finish their degree and get their little sheepskin for their associate's degree at the end of 2 years. And this is going to be very lucrative to you, Mr. Lewis and Clark, to keep these people enrolled and get them a graduation certificate. At all costs, you better keep them enrolled so that they graduate. Are we going to have the dumbing down of America? Are we going to have institutions of higher learning saying, you know what, we've got to keep him on the rolls because we've got a big payday here at the end of this 2-year cycle, or in the case of a 4-year university, a 4-year cycle, to keep him enrolled. It's kind of like what we face somewhat now in the public schools, with if your enrollment has to stay high, your enrollment, you have to keep attendance at certain levels, otherwise your state funding is going to fall off. So we're going to do everything we can to keep people there. I mean, we hear anecdotes now of used car giveaways of everybody that has perfect attendance for 4 years of high school, cash incentives to children that can make it for a full school year and not miss one day because that check that the state is writing is very important to that school district. While I think that's a good idea on Sheila Simon's part, my concern is that the incentive be it if it's financial, is going to encourage, we're chasing not necessarily what's good for that student, we're not chasing the education quality for that student, we're chasing the check at completion.
Pat, Lieutenant Governor Sheila Simon says we need an incentive program so that institutions can keep students in school until they graduate. Is that a good idea?
No, I have not seen enough detail to have a very good idea. As Jim was implying in his answer, I don't know what it's going to cost. I don't know how the universities and colleges, community colleges, are going to be incented for retention of students. The implication is that they would be in some fashion. I'm presuming from what I've read, the money doesn't go to the student. Money goes to the institution, so that you're incenting the institution to do things that I would think the institution would naturally be trying to do anyway. It's even got to be cheaper for the college, I would think, to keep a student enrolled than it would be to replace a student or find a replacement. Recruitment would be an issue. So I'm not sure what the mechanism is to meet the need, and I'm not sure the extent to which the need is not being met already. She's very optimistic about this. She's talking about increasing the level of college graduation in Illinois by 50% within 14 years. That's a lot. And it's laudable, I suppose. I just don't understand the project. Now, she's a teacher. She's taught at the SIU Carbondale Law School, daughter of a former U.S. Senator, former Representative, Lieutenant Governor, Governor candidate Paul Simon. Very bright public service political family, and I'm second to none in appreciation for her. I just don't know that I understand enough about what she's proposing to have a very strong opinion about it. This is 2 for 2, by the way, as much as I don't understand the DREAM Act and exactly what the state's role is and what it might cost the taxpayer despite the promises. I don't know about this either. And in these times, you've got to measure every dollar that you're going to spend or reallocate in some way, because that's the nature of the financial times.
But do you see an underlying question here is we have 2 laudable programs here that sounds like a great idea and sounds like something that people would stand and applaud for. We don't know the financial impact of either one of them and where the money is going to come from for either one of them. I mean, it's a wonderful thing, but nobody knows where the money is going to come from.
And there's a larger question, too, about at what point do people do things because it's the right thing to do, either for themselves or for their own institution, without being financially incented to do it. We've got communities at each other's throats over sales tax dollars. I'm trying to steal your Walmart away. You're trying to take my Sam's away. You got that kind of thing. And this, in a microcosmic way, seems like sort of the same thing. Shouldn't these students care enough about themselves to stay in school?
However, for the right check, I will enroll next semester.
We'll get that to you. That's going to do it for this edition of Metro Talk. Thanks for being with us. Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph, has been here, along with Pat Gowan, one of the editors with the Post-Dispatch. I'm Kent Scheffel. We'll see you next time.